I introduce and please welcome our treasure here at Palomar College, Dr. Peter Gach.
I won't have to talk on this point. But I have to talk to you because I want to tell you the story of the Ballads and give you a little bit of introduction into what these marvelous pieces are about. And actually, I don't know if you know people like this in your life, but there are some people who tell the same story over and over again. And today I'm going to be one of those people because I'm going to actually play that ballad again, but before I do, I'm going to walk you through it and give you the parts of the story. Now the word ballad comes, actually is derived from the English ballad, if you will. Ballads were, of course, a very, very old form of telling stories because they were stories in rhyme and stories usually to a song or chanted. And that allowed the person telling the story to remember it. So the rhythm of the words, if you will, acted as a memory device. Now Chopin had the idea of taking the very popular ballad or ballad form, which we know was popularized by Sir Walter Scott, who took a number of Scottish ballads, kind of fleshed them out, if you will, made them into popular poems, and then all across Europe, people began to translate his ballads and also write ballads or ballades of their own based on the indigenous folk tales, if you will, or stories in rhyme of the countries that they were in France, in Poland, in Germany, all across the continental Europe, this was happening. Chopin had the very original idea of taking the ballad form and making it into a ballad or a strictly musical form. Now, this was a very difficult thing to do because how can you tell a story in music? And to make it even more difficult, Chopin hated to tell a story in which there were actual titles. So, for example, many of you know this prelude as the Raindrop Prelude. Chopin never called it the Raindrop Prelude. Some of you know the Revolutionary Etude. Chopin never called it the Revolutionary Etude. Some of you know the Heroic Polonaise. Chopin never called. He hated titles like that. He gave it, the ballades, for example, just a generic title, Ballade number 1, Ballade number 2, Ballade number 3, Ballade number 4, and he wrote these large pieces. As you can tell, that's a 10-minute epic, if you will. He wrote these large pieces throughout his creative life. The first one occurs when he's in his 20s, and the last one a few years before he died. Today I'm going to play 1 and 3, but I'm going to repeat number 1 for you in just a second. But I want to really emphasize to you the fact that Chopin was against those kind of titles. Now there were other composers contemporary to him, such as Franz Liszt, who was born a year later than Chopin, so you're going to get a lot of Liszt next year. But Franz Liszt liked to give titles to things. Next year I'll be playing St. Francis Walks on the Waves, St. Francis Preaches to the Birds. I mean, he loved to give titles like that. By the way, his name was Franz, so he liked to write about St. Francis. Chopin was a much more introverted, covered, hidden kind of composer in the sense that there's an enormous amount of emotion in his music, but the emotion that's in there and the characters who are creating the emotion in the story belong to your imagination and not to his. So he doesn't say, oh, this is where such and such happens, and this is where the lady in distress is rescued, and this is where the town goes up in flames, and none of that, but it's up to your imagination to fill in. So it's the action of a ballad without the characters in the action. And that's what gives them their peculiar charm. Now, having said that, I'm actually going to contradict myself and Chopin and give you some of what I think are the things going on in the ballad. And when I talk about the first ballad, much of what I say is going to apply to all the others. And as I believe Ellen mentioned, you're only going to hear 2 today, one of them twice. But at the Museum of Making Music, November the 6th at 7 p.m., and the brochure does not have the time, it's at 7, I'm actually going to do all 4 of them, which is a tremendous thing to hear each of them one after the other. It's like reading 4 Dostoevsky novels one after the other, or War and Peace 4 times over. It's just a huge amount of concentrated energy. Be that as it may, every ballad starts with an introduction, and the introduction is something like a storyteller does when the storyteller goes, be quiet everybody, gather round, I'm going to tell you a story. So how does the story begin in the first ballad? Well, he opens up with a passage in which the right and left hand play exactly the same note, an octave apart, like this. times, but by that point, when the rhythm starts to swing in what we call compound duple, 1 and 2 and I am going to tell you a story. It is very sad. I hope you don't cry too much. So it has that kind of rocking rhythm that, in a sense, seduces you into listening to what's going on. So you're going to hear that lovely melody. After a while, the melody is going to develop a little bit. Now the harmony is going to change. It's going to get mysterious. Wonderful build-ups that happen frequently in romantic music. The tension's going to build, it's going to build, and it's going to build. You're going to see me sweeping up and down the keyboard. Maybe the winds are howling through the mountains, who knows? Sorry, Chopin, but again, something's happening there. There's a lot of movement. Okay, so at the end of this wonderful movement up and down the keyboard, I'll play a little bit of it. Simple theme. One of the beauties of Chopin's music is he's able to take the most simple means and make it the most profound emotional expression. And he can get very complicated as well, of course. At the end of this, there's something very interesting happening at the end of this theme. You're going to hear a little kind of wrapping up section. And in this section, another characteristic of Chopin's music, he sometimes obsesses on a single note. You're going to hear B flat. Going to have that B flat inside the music. Every time that happens, I'm going to say B flat, and not when I'm playing it later, but just now. And it'll sound like this. B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat. You can say it B flat. So it's almost like the music's moving, but it's moving and staying still simultaneously. It's almost as if after all the agitation and then this lovely theme that came in, then Chopin says, okay, now everything's just calm, nothing's going to happen, everything's going to be fine from now on, except it isn't, because we get that's our theme from the very beginning, but it's in a different place on the keyboard, different key. It's where we started. But here it's a step higher. It builds, it builds, it builds, it builds, and what happens then? We hear this theme. But now it's all dressed up. This is known as romantic apotheosis. Romantic apotheosis means taking something that's simple and bringing it back in a bigger, 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 more elaborate form. If you want to see romantic apotheosis, watch Power Ballads on American Idol. When someone sings a power ballad at the end, they go through a romantic apotheosis. They don't know they're doing that. But it's become part of our pop culture that if you sing a power ballad, at the end you have to lift it up a key or two, and you have to have all the lights. Someone has to come down in a basket and wave. So we go through the tension, but here's the theme again. That simple theme. But here it is in its apotheosis form. crashing down. Waters are churning, things are getting muddy, but out of that the bird flies up. And notice also how he uses the various parts of the keyboard to create different colors. He was a master also at using the enormous range of sound that's in the piano and developing it in a way that no one had before him. Then we go into Fantasyland and somebody's dancing. Then there's a long transition. Things start to get very agitated again. After a run down the keyboard, our theme comes back, this time where it was before, but with the very agitated left hand. That works itself out after a while. You're going to hear the repeated notes again, the famous B flat. I'll let you listen to those on your own. And then things get a little bit mysterious again. Uh-oh, something's coming. There's our theme again. The theme gives way to a big series of chords, and then the storm comes and the village is burning down. Something's happening, the plane crashes, and there's a tragic ending to this ballad. Now, I could go on in detail, but I want you to listen to it again, and I want to have enough time left to play you the third ballad as well. But that at least will give you sort of an outline, and again, I'm somewhat facetious in giving you things that are happening, but it's your imagination that's going to fill in the blanks as to the actual design of the characters in terms of their emotions. So here is the ballad, the same story, the second time around. tragically. Actually, number 2 does. It ends in sort of a nuclear explosion. Number 4 ends in insanity. But number 3 ends triumphantly. So I'd like to play number 3 for you. It's in the key of A flat major. It has a very, very long introduction. It starts out in a kind of mellow way. You're going to hear this little gentle figure. And that's going to go on for quite some time. You'll know when the story has started, when you hear, and again, with all due respects to Chopin, when you hear the horsey start to canter. It'll sound like this. This gentle motion. I don't ride horses, but I've been told that's something like a canter. It's not a trot, but it's sort of but it's that gentle Tennessee rider sort of gated walk, if you will. Chopin was never in Tennessee, but I think that it has that gentle feeling. Okay, the whole romantic apotheosis is here. You'll hear several build-ups. You'll hear figuration. You'll hear all of the same elements, but now recombined into a totally different story. So I'd love to go through it in detail, but I'd rather that you listen to it all the way through. So here is the Ballade number 3 in A flat major.